Hello and welcome to today's town hall meeting.
Don't
We're
touch him.
we are very excited to have Deborah Erickson, who is the founder and executive chef of the Blind Kitchen. I asked Deborah to tell us something about her story and how she started. And then she will tell us about tips and tricks on cooking and baking, which is very timely during the season. Deborah?
Good morning, everyone. It's early here in Oregon. I'll tell you a little bit about the Blind Kitchen. It's not a restaurant. We'll start there. It is an online store and resource for people with vision loss who want to cook safely and confidently and independently in their own homes. So we're not a storefront either. I am blind. I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I was the only blind student in culinary school. So I had to solve a lot of problems. And retinitis pigmentosa, as many of you probably know, can vary from person to person. Mine is genetic, of course, and I have two brothers that have it, and our visions are all different. So I just have a little bit of vision left in one eye, in case you're wondering. So yeah, so what we do is we just get accessible tools or information into people's hands to help making cooking with vision loss safer and more comfortable. So there's basically three big fears when it comes to cooking after you have vision loss, and those are of sharp things, of hot things, and also of for many, it's a fear of embarrassment. Am I going to knock stuff down? Am I going to look? Is the kitchen going to look messy? Am I going to, spit, any of those things? Will the presentation be pretty? And so all of those things are taken into consideration from the Blind Kitchen. One other thing is I taught at the Oregon Commission for the Blind for several years. I taught adults one-on-one with cooking, so I learned a lot from my students too. So I'd like to start this out with giving you an example of some of the tools that are in the Blind Kitchen. And I'll tell you the ones that are, but sometimes the answer to a question is not a tool, but it's just an information or a strategy. And we have a lot of those on the website as well in the Blind Kitchen library. And it's nicely organized into different things like labeling things, identifying things. How do you access and read recipes after vision loss if you can't read even large print anymore? There's like 12 right answers to any questions. Depending on your comfort with technology, depending on your budget, depending on your willingness to learn new ways. So there's a lot of different answers to questions. There's not one size fits all answer. So let's start with so I'd like to start with addressing those three areas. And then I'd like to open the floor to questions, because I want to definitely guide this discussion to where you are all at. If none of you are bakers, it doesn't make sense for me to go on and on about baking. But if that's what you're interested in, we can definitely go that direction, or more savory cooking on top of the stove. We can definitely do that as well. They covered it all in culinary school, so whether I liked it or not, I had to learn how to do it, and I had to compete with the other students. So I learned a lot about many different types of cooking. So the first thing, let's talk about cutting and chopping. That's a valid fear for people to have. And the tool that I would recommend for that one, first of all, if you go on the website, it gives you 3 different ways to cut safely. That's just information, whether you're going to shape your hand like a claw to keep your fingers fingertips turned under while you're cutting the food, so you're not going to hit your fingertips. And there's there are 3 different methods for slicing. That's a whole different way of doing things. But the tool I would recommend, and this was not meant for blind people. Most of my tools aren't. About 90% of them were not meant for blind people. But because I had to solve these problems, I re-looked at them in different ways, so to speak. And I'll give you some examples. So in terms of cutting, we have a thing called a cut glove. And what it is, it's not bulky at all. It's not heavy metal. It's very stretchy, actually, and it's made of a weave of polyethylene threads that you literally can't cut through it. So I've done this in demonstrations where I'll put that glove on my hand, and then I'll put my palm straight up to the ceiling, so it's facing the ceiling, and then I run a knife back and forth across it, and it doesn't hurt me, and it doesn't cut through. I can feel the pressure, but what I would do is, let's say I'm cutting a carrot and I'm slicing, and all of a sudden I feel pressure on my hand that's holding the food. I'm just going to stop. I mean, that's just telling me something's wrong. If I weren't wearing the glove, by the time that the message got from my finger to my brain that there was pressure on it when there shouldn't be, I'd already be cut. So the glove is a really good thing for, and where I learned about that, I did a work experience when I was taking my blind skills training at the Commission for the Blind, and they made all of their cooks wear it in that work. It's like a deli grocery store combo. And the insurance company made the cooks all wear it. That it wasn't because they had a blind cook in there now. They just that's just what they did. So it's a really good tool, and most of the tools in the blind kitchen are under $10. There's some that are $3, but there's no shipping and there's no retail tax because I live in the state of Oregon. So if it says, $7.99 on the shelves, that's exactly what you're going to pay, which is kind of a nice option for living in Oregon. So that's called a cut glove. And the other place that really comes in handy is if I am grating. I love a good box grater, don't get me wrong. They're very used often in my kitchen and very valuable. But I don't know of any cooks, regardless of whether they can see or not, who have not left their DNA from their knuckles in the cheese or the potatoes or the carrots that they're shredding. They're weird. They're angled weird. They have lots of different blades on them, and it's hard to really judge that. So if you put the cut glove on the hand that'll be holding the food, that's the important thing. So that's probably your dominant hand now. And you go down and you're cutting, trying to pay attention, maybe trying to see whatever, when you're going to feel it snag on it. And what are you going to do? You're just going to stop. And that way, nobody gets your DNA, no biological contaminants in the food, and it works really good. Any questions on the cut glove?
I guess not.
Please tell me you can hear me.
Yes, yes, we
Okay,
can hear you well. Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll tell you about another sharps related tool, and this is especially good if you live in a household with someone who has vision, and so it's a mixed household. So it's called a sharps basket, and you can use whatever you have in your home for this. You don't have to buy them from the blind kitchen. Ours are pretty and they're sturdy, but what the idea is that any sharp tools that could cut your hands or cut my hands, scissors, graters, anything that can cut is going to be in a predictable location. So it's basically an elongated pencil holder is what it is. And it sits on the counter. And so if there's a peeler, if it's not in my hand or my husband's hand or my son's hand, it is going to be in the drawer put away safely, or it's going to be in that sharps basket that's at the top of my work area. we send two of them because we put the other one on the back of the kitchen sink. So that way, if I'm working and I'm not able to wash the knife right that minute, I don't want to, I want to keep going, I can just drop it at the back of the sink in that basket that's on the counter at the back of the sink, and then I can address it later. So that's a good tool too. So I'll give you another information only. This is where the first thing I do when I go to cook is I run a few inches of hot soapy water in the sink. And the reason I do this is number one, I'm slow at cooking. It's part of that comes with it for me. I'm sure there are a lot of fast cooks out there with vision loss, but I'm not one of them. I don't apologize for it. It just, I know I have to plan for it since I know it. So when let's say I'm cutting chicken and I've got it on my work tray and I'm cutting it, and now my hands have that chicken juice on it that can grow dangerous bacteria rapidly at room temperature. So if I have to touch the counter, touch the faucet, make sure it's over the right sink, turn on the water control to grab the soap to wash my hands, I've got to then go backwards and decontaminate any of those areas I may have touched because I'll probably be in the kitchen for another hour or so. But if I have a sink of a couple of inches of soapy water in the sink, now I can use the backs of my hands, which hopefully won't have chicken juice on them, or I can use my forearms, and then I can go find where the sink is at without touching anything, and then just plunge my fingers. And now my hands have soap and water on them, so they're clean. Now I can touch the water faucets or the controls. And the reason I only run a couple of inches is because um, it gets cold and it's pretty gross to drip your hands into cold, greasy water or whatever, over the course of cooking. But I can just run a couple more when it starts to get cool down. I can just run a couple more inches of soapy water, and it gets pleasantly warm again, and I can continue cooking. Plus, it helps me start cleanup. Let's say I use a teaspoon or a tablespoon or a small dish. I can just drop that in the sink of soapy water and I get started on my cleanup. Any questions so far?
If you have any questions, just unmute yourself. I think so far we're good, Deborah.
Okay, good, good,
Okay.
good. So you're getting an idea of the
We
way
have a question.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted. I'm with a
Okay.
student at the Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind, and he has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Morris, and I have a question. You talk about the cutting gloves, and basically, like before you begin to cook, the first thing you do, you always wash your hand, but because you don't want to get some germs on the food, but if you use the gloves and touch the food, will the food not be contaminated with germs?
Oh, good question. No, the gloves will be contaminated. If you are cutting chicken and you're wearing one on your hand, you can't then go and cut produce with it. You'll have to put it in your kitchen laundry and maybe grab another one if you're going to be cutting a carrot or something like that. They are thin. They're quite flexible. You can, bend your hands pretty much any way you want. But and they can be washed just like you would wash your hands. You can just dip it into that soapy water and run it back and forth while you're wearing the glove, and then rinse it really well. And you can dry it in the dish basket. I have about 4 of them in my kitchen. And you can also wash them and dry them. When I worked at the Oregon Commission for the Blind, we had 3 meal prep instructors, and we usually had 2, 3, or 4 students each a day. So that adds up to be a lot of gloves. And so those we just put them in the laundry, washed them and dried them. And over time, they don't lose their effectiveness at preventing cuts, but they do start to get like a t-shirt does, get a little bit stretched out. So yeah, you have to replace them, but they go through hundreds of times the wash. Did that answer your question?
Thank you, Morris. Yeah. Alice, did you have a question? Is it Alice Marie? I guess not.
Okay. I'm a JAWS user that where my screen, when things come across my screen, it gets red to me. So in my ear, I heard someone type something about automatic sinks that are touchless, first of all, and those are wonderful. And sinks that actually measure out water. You can say dispense 1 cup of water or whatever. And that's when I started out the beginning. I'm a big fan of technology, huge. But again, it depends on your budget and your comfort with technology. But those were good suggestions. Okay, I'll move on to, let's see, how about measuring wet liquids? That, especially small amounts, accurately and without having any waste. So we have a tool in the Blind Kitchen that we have 2 measuring bestsellers for sure, and they're called the Wet Measure Spoons. So first of all, I'll tell you about our measuring cups and spoons. They're made out of stainless steel, so they're going to last forever. And you don't need any vision at all to know what the size of the spoon or the cup is, because in the handle, made of stainless steel, not attached to stainless steel, but it's part of the handle, in the manufacturing, there are a series of little bumps, little dots. They're evenly spaced and they're even heights. So what you do, it's not Braille. What you need to do is to be able to count the dots. So if I'm counting on a cup or a spoon and I count there's 4 little dots on the handle, I know I'm holding a 1/4 or a 1/4 teaspoon or 1/4 or 1/4 cup. The number of dots is the denominator of the fraction. If there's 3, it's going to be 1/3 of a cup. If there are 2 dots, it's going to be a 1/2 teaspoon or a 1/2 cup. And if there are if there's 1 dot, it's going to be 1 cup or 1 teaspoon. So that makes it really easy. You don't need any vision and you don't need to know Braille, but all you have to know how is to count. So with the wet, so those look very much like probably stainless steel cups and spoons you might have in your kitchen now, but this is where the Blind Kitchen took a turn for wet measuring. For the wet measuring cups and spoons, the handle faces the ceiling, so it resembles a ladle, because that's how we transfer liquids in our society. If you're transferring large amounts of soup, you're not going to want to use a flat spoon. A ladle will do it much more efficiently, and you can carry more liquid without spilling it. So that's why our teaspoons, our measuring spoons and measuring cups are shaped like ladles. So let's say I need a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. Well, first of all, I'm probably going to use a whole teaspoon because that's just the way I roll. I like vanilla a lot. But we also send with those cups a small funnel and a small spouted pitcher. It's only about 2 inches high and 1 inch wide. You probably don't have the funnel the size in your kitchen either. It's not like a micro funnel for essential oils and stuff. It's bigger than that. It's actually the kind used in a laboratory. So if I'm going to, let's say I want to pour that 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So I could, if I was doing it with a traditional spoon, that means that spoon is, I'm holding the handle in one hand and it's parallel to the counter. And I'm going to pour a little bit of vanilla. You don't want to waste it. It's about $8 for 2 ounces now. It's crazy how much it is. But then you touch it. Is it up to the top? I'm not sure. Let's pour a little more. Is it up to the top? I'm not sure. And you usually can't tell it's up to the top until it does spill over. So one tip here too, another way to do things, if you can, if that's the way you are measuring now and you don't want to invest in any other spoons, put the vanilla in the refrigerator. You're going to get a lot more feeling from a cold liquid than you will one that's room temperature, and it won't hurt your vanilla. That's just a tip for measuring wet ingredients in general. But let's say, so with ours now, you've got that little spouted pitcher, that 2-inch high pitcher, and you're going to take that half a teaspoon, and I'll count 2 dots, then I'll know I've got the half a teaspoon, and I'm going to set it in that cup. So now it's the cup won't let it fall down. So it now my hands are free again. And so think about that. For me, I always say if they're going to take our vision, they should have given us another hand, because I never have enough hands. My cane is in it, or I'm usually one-handed most of the time. But now, because I have that spoon standing up by itself in that little pitcher, I've got my 2 hands back. So I take the bottle of vanilla, and now I'm going to take the lid off and carefully put it down so I know where it's at. And then I'm going to pour until the cavity of that half a teaspoon is submerged. I'm going to purposely overflow the spoon. I'm not overflowing the cup. I'm just this pitcher. I'm just overflowing the spoon. And now I'm going to get my target bowl as close to that little pitcher as I can without knocking it over, so I don't have to travel far. And now it's going to be easy for me to lift that spoon straight up. And if I don't hear anything drop, I can just move it over and transfer it and pour it in there. And I will know that it was exactly a level half a teaspoon, because I didn't hear anything drop out, and it was just under liquid seconds ago. But now I've got that overflow in that little pitcher. So that's where the funnel comes in. So now I'm going to take the funnel, and you could try and pour it into the bottle, but it's a very small opening. It's going to be hard to do, and you're going to risk spilling it. And so that's where the funnel comes in. You just drop the funnel in, and it's got about a 3-inch opening on the top of it, and it fits into the 2-ounce vanilla bottles or the littler bottles really well. And then you just quickly pour the little pitcher into the funnel. It's all here, and then you put the funnel and the pitcher in the sink, and now you've got your level teaspoon. You're confident that it was the correct measurement, and you don't have any waste. So are there any questions about the wet measuring system from the Blind Kitchen?
Any questions? I guess not.
You're a quiet group.
I just want to say one thing. I love funnels, and I never knew about your system, but I love funnels, and I use them all the time when I pour different things, not just little, teaspoonfuls, but I use them all the time. So
Oh,
thank you for that suggestion, though. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. You know, when I used to teach, one thing that people had a real problem doing was filling their coffee makers. Now they've got Keurigs and all that. It's kind of a different story, but we would use very long, flexible funnels so that they could leave their coffee machine right where it's at, but pour them in. So you're right. Funnels are a friend for people with vision loss. They just give us bigger targets.
Deborah, I have a question. Many people have problems when they pour in coffee or tea. And do you have any suggestions how to do that in a safe way without burning their hands?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So we have there's a couple things you can do. One is to pre-measure the liquid before you put it in. You know, if you're just going to heat it up, make sure it's only, if you have an 8-ounce cup, only do 7 ounces or whatever. But there's another tool out there that we sell. It's called a liquid alert. And what it is, it's a battery pack. And then if you take your 2 fingers and make a peace sign with your hand and then bend your fingers over, now you've got like your 2 fingers are bent over. Those are wires on this machine, and they're going to hang over the edge of your cup about 1 inch. So let's say you have a hot coffee cup, and so now the batteries are on the outside, but these 2 prongs are on the inside. When you go to pour any liquid, whether it's hot or cold, into that cup, when the liquid hits those 2 prongs at the same time, it's going to beep. It's going to complete the circuit so the battery can do its work now to make a noise, a tone for you. so that you know that you are nearing the top. And on some models, they have a third one in the middle that's shorter. And so you get a certain tone when you're getting close to the top, and then you'll get a real loud, fast, fast, fast tone that you know you're about to overflow it and you need to stop. So that's really good for hot liquids. And also, I'm a big believer in dignity, even with vision loss. And if you're at my house and I'm going to serve you a glass of lemonade or iced tea or something like that, you're not going to want my fingers at the top. Believe me, I'll do it for me or my husband. I have no problems just putting my fingers, but you're not going to want that for your guests. And so you can just hook that over the top of the glass, pour it till you hear it beep a little bit. And I understand now, I haven't seen them, but they also have ones that vibrate. So they're not going to make a noise that everyone can hear. But you will get a vibration to tell you that you're getting near the top. So that would be my tool, and they're not expensive at all, and they last forever as long as you can't submerge the battery portion in water, of course, but you just have to wipe those prongs and put it away, and the next person that picks it up and wonders what it is going to get the shock, not a shock, but a scare, because it's very sudden and very alerting. It definitely will let you know you've completed the circuit if you put 2 fingers on it too.
True.
I have a
Joan?
question. Yeah,
Yes, Joan.
hi. I have one, but it doesn't work on metal cups. I mean, I put
that's-
it over the side of the metal cup with nothing in it and it starts beep, beep, beeping.
You're completing the circuit.
Yeah, that's
steel-
what I mean.
Yeah.
it
I
won't
never even
work on a
thought
metal
about
cup.
that. Yeah, I never thought about that. But yeah, you'd be completing the circuit just like the liquid does.
Right. Okay.
Wow. I don't
Good
have an
to know,
answer for
Joan.
that one.
Thank you. Okay, I think no more questions for now.
Okay, so there's other ways to do this. Sometimes people they'll use talking scales to measure the liquid out until the scale. So you put your cup on the scale, and let's say it weighs, I'm making up a number here, 3.8 ounces. So then you'll pour your liquid until the scale announces that it's 2.8 ounces, and then you'll know that you have the amount of hot water you need by using a talking scale. So like I said, there's more than one way to solve problems. And again, it depends on your level of your budget a lot of times. Your comfort with technology. That is definitely adaptive technology, but it's very simple. You don't need a rocket science degree to be able to use that one. With other technologies involving smart speakers and appliances and stuff like that, that can get a lot more complicated. Or technologies like using your phone screen reader, voiceover or talk back to try and read a recipe, that requires quite a bit more training. It's worth it, but you're not going to be able to do that, as soon as you open the box. You're going to have to do some practicing. I want to tell you about another measuring tool that we have that is absolutely wonderful. We call it an auto measure spout, and it dispenses exactly 1 tablespoon of liquid. So you put it on top of a bottle, of the liquid you want. Let's say you want 1 ounce of olive oil in your pan, or you want 2 tablespoons of olive oil. A lot of recipes call for that when you're, sauteing or something like that. So you take the bottle, you turn it upside down over the pan or the bowl you want the tablespoon in, and you'll hear it drip, drip, drip. It'll dispense, and then it stops, even if you're still holding it upside down automatically. So if I want that 2nd tablespoon, I've got to bring the bottle back to its upright position so it can redo its magic or whatever. And then I tip it upside down, it waits a second, and then drip, 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 drip. And then all of a sudden it stops. So it's a really good tool. It's another one of those spirit of the blind kitchen. It frees up a hand. So now one hand can see for you, where is the bowl, where is the pan, and the other hand can do the work for you. It can do that. You don't have to do the whole. And it works for vinegars, oils. I've got two bottles on my counter at all times. One of them is avocado oil. That's my cheaper oil of choice, and I've got a more expensive olive oil. So when taste matters, I can grab my olive oil but if I'm searing a steak or something where you're not going to taste the oil when it's all over, then I can use the other one. And so the size of the bottle opening matters. This is a spout that, has to fit inside it snugly. And what I use are half wine bottles. So my olive oil, so they look exactly alike, feel exactly alike. But the way I tell them apart is I put a rubber band around the neck of the olive oil because I think rich people wear rings, and it's more expensive. So that's the way I remember which is which. So the one with the ring, that's going to be the more expensive one. So that's another technique of labeling you can use that's low tech and low cost. Rubber bands, they're you get them on asparagus. They're very inexpensive. And you can use that, like, let's say you have a cream of mushroom soup and a cream of chicken soup. So both of those are going to feel exactly alike. They're going to sound exactly alike. And there's a lot of different ways to read the labels on them. But let's say you don't want to take out the time to get out your phone, or your AI, or get your husband to read it for you. If I'm at the grocery store, I can just slip a rubber band around the cream of mushroom once I know which one it is, or once the groceries come home, he can say, here's cream of chicken, here's cream of mushroom. I put a rubber band on the cream of mushroom because mushroom has an R for rubber band and chicken doesn't have an R. So you can use all kinds of different ways to mark things. Are there any questions?
Deborah, any other tips that you use to mark things, or, even things in the fridge? How would you know that's orange juice and not milk, or, other ways?
Yeah, no,
to
it's a good
mark?
question. So part of refrigerator organization is organizing it in such a way. So for example, if I have leftovers, I put them on the left middle shelf. So I think left. So that's always where they're not going to be on the top shelf or the bottom shelf unless, yeah, they're always going to be there. It's a tall enough shelf I can fit anything. So the orange juice, you could use the R again. Orange has R in it. So put the rubber band around the orange juice and just leave the milk carton. There's of course Braille, but there's another system out there. There's a couple of things. It's called Way Around, and I don't sell it per se, but it's wayaround.com, and they are meant for people with vision loss. And what they are is tags, and there are about I think there's 7 different styles, and I use them for my chef coats. I have about 30 chef coats. It's part of my brand, and so I don't have to have my husband come help me find the purple one. I can just use my phone. You download a free app, everything gets stored on the cloud, and you pay, I think it's a little over $1 now for each label, but they can be reused over and over again, except if you buy the stickers are going to stay stuck. You can relabel them, but if you stick a sticker to the top of a can of chicken soup, when you throw away that can lid, that sticker's going to go. You can't pull it off unless you apply a circular thing of tape on top of the can. Then and don't use the sticker part of it. I mean, don't use the adhesive that is attached to the sticker. Then you can remove that from the lid and reuse that sticker. So there's also something called Wiki Sticks. And again, I don't sell those, but they are available on wikisticks.com, and they are yarn. They're food grade wax covered yarns. And so they're meant for kids, to tell you the truth. They come in different colors. So if you have color available to you, you can use contrast. And they stick to non-porous surfaces, and they bend. So kids can make flowers or rainbows or whatever, and it's not going to mess up the airplane, and it's not going to mess up the table in the restaurant or the cruise. And they're very inexpensive, and you can use them again and again, and they do work in the refrigerator. The other thing I use a lot are bump dots. So we sell these salt and pepper sellers. But you can mark yours in any way you want. On our salt, they're actually apothecary jars where the wire is attached to the lid, and there's a gasket to keep air and critters out of it. But the reason it's so accessible, it's 2 3/4 inches tall and 2 3/4 inches wide. It's a heavy glass, and it's short and squat, but it's big enough to get a teaspoon in there, a tablespoon in there, or your fingertips. If you're just sprinkling it on, it's just for you, you just want a little dash of salt on your own food. But it's almost impossible to knock over, especially when the lid is open, because now you've got 2 points of contact. You're going to have to work hard to knock that one over. So the salt and pepper sellers are exactly the same, except that we put a sticker that's prickly. It's like a little bit scratchy, kind of like Velcro. So if I'm touching the salt jar, salt is smooth. You're getting a thing how my poor brain works, and pepper is prickly. So I know with just touch of my fingertips which jar I need to open for my next step, and then I can close it. Now I use those same jars for my onion powder and garlic powder. And so here's another free chef tip. If you're buying garlic salt, you're getting cheated because salt is way cheaper than dehydrated garlic, and there's no industry standard as to it doesn't have to be 50-50. The manufacturer can do whatever they want. So you're probably getting more salt than garlic powder. So you'll pay more initially if you buy pure garlic powder, but you can add your own salt. That's a lot cheaper. So I put, because garlic powder is one ingredient, I put 1 bump dot on top of that. And a bump dot is just a small adhesive rubber or silicone, like a half of a ball, and you can stick it on surfaces to be able to mark them. And how you mark yours, the meaning is to you. So my 1 bump dot, if you came into my kitchen, you may not use that system, so you won't know that's garlic powder, but I've assigned it meaning. Onion powder, same thing. You may say, Deborah, that's 1 ingredient as well. How do you keep them up? Well, I put 2 bump dots on it because onions have 2 O's. And that's how I remember it. So in my house and at the Commission for the Blind, we did the same thing. I'm not so much of a one to use seasoning salt, but we put 3 dots on the seasoning salt so that we had 4 kitchens. So the 3 of us all, of course, have vision loss. So no matter which kitchen you were in, you knew which was the onion, which one was the pepper, which one was the garlic powder, even though they all had they were the same size and shape. Does that make sense on the labeling?
It does.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things, and those are also, you can get them a lot of different places. We sell an assortment of them that they're square, some are a little bit, they're all made of rubber, but some are a little pointier at the top. So it depends on what meaning you assign them. And they also can mark your keyboards to help you know if your fingers are in the right place. They come very, very tiny, or they can come quite a bit bigger. It just depends on what your needs are.
Joy, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Sure.
The speaker talked about something that she could put on the top of a bottle to measure drip, 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 2 teaspoons of olive oil. What was that product called, please?
Sure. It's called the Auto Measure Spout. And I
Thank
think
you.
they're $7.99, and that's all you pay. No tax, no shipping.
Thank you.
Yep.
Frank, you had a question? Frank?
Same question.
Yeah. Oh, same question. Okay.
Yeah, it's called the Auto Measure Spout. It's 3 words, And I wish I could find a teaspoon dispenser, but I can't, because they're truly made for alcohol. If you've ever been in a bar, you'll see those on the top of bottles, so that a specific amount of liquor, they come in different sizes, but they don't come in teaspoon. So I guess nobody just wants a teaspoon of alcohol. I don't know.
Deborah, I have a question about spices. I mean, the only way I can tell is by smelling them, if the colors are very close to one another. What
Yeah.
tricks or tips do you use for spices?
Yeah, good question. So I use my system is the pen friend. And for what that is, it's like a big fat cigar is what it kind of looks like. They call it a pen, and it's kind of shaped like a pen, but it's way thicker around than a pen. And what you do is it comes with specially coated stickers. They come in different shapes and colors and sizes. So when there's a recording mode, and then for the others, there's just where you listen. So if I record a sticker on top of my cinnamon, which like you were saying, Tara, if it's in a closed container, now you got to take the lid off to even smell it. It's a pain. I can very quickly just turn on that pen, touch it to the top. I've got a round sticker on each lid so that I don't have to search for the sticker. I know if I get anywhere close to the vicinity of the lid, I've got it. And the pen talks back to me, and it says cinnamon in my own voice. It's actually recorded. The way around tags would work for this as well, but I've had my system in place for years. The way around tags, you could take a way around tag, attach it to the lid of the bottle, and this time you can use your phone. It's a very simple interface. You just click read. Well, you could create it first, and you could say cinnamon, and then you write it to the tag. And so that time, every time you come back with your phone and you click read on your phone, it will read in a robotic voice cinnamon, and you can do all your spices that way. So you're just skimming right across the top. And that's how I do my coats. I put them on the bottom left hem of the coat. And so then, and they're shaped like buttons. So I can sew them or button near them or even use a safety pin. And all I have to do is run your phone has to be very close to them to work. So it's not going to accidentally read the one next to it if you've got to hold it almost touching the center top of your phone. So that's another really good system for doing spices. There's also a company out there called Can Doables, and they sell they're almost like, a plastic snap bracelet that goes on your hand. It doesn't go all the way in a circle, and it has a little bit of flexibility, but you can snap it onto a can or a bottle. And she makes them in grade 1 and grade 2 Braille, that you can put those on your spices too if you're a Braille reader. Other people use Alexa, that you can create a routine and you can say, Alexa, where is the smoked paprika? And I don't know how to do this. You'll have to talk to a tech person, but they'll say it'll be like row 4, number 3. And she'll be able to tell you because you pre-programmed it. You got to be real careful to put things back where you got them, or else you might be grabbing nutmeg next time if you put it in the wrong place. But I think that's a pretty cool system, but that's too high tech for me.
That's true. Okay. I think no more questions. Any other tips and tricks you would like to tell us?
Okay, probably the most valuable tool, if I had to pick one in my kitchen, is something we call a work tray. It's basically a cafeteria tray or a school tray or a hospital tray where you get your food on, a fast food tray. It's got those little sloped edges around it. I don't even use cutting boards anymore. I cut right on that tray. That's where I'm going to cut my chicken, because those sloped sides are going to help contain whatever I'm doing. So if I am cutting up a chicken or I'm seasoning a chicken or whatever, I'm not going to have to worry about juice getting on the counter. It's going to be contained in there. And also, now I've seasoned the chicken, but now I need to do another step. I can go to the sink, plunge my hands, the tray is clean around the outside, I can grab it and move it to another counter or to a dining room table until I'm ready to use it without worrying about putting a dishcloth on it or anything, you know, by accident. And then I pull out another work tray. We also have, so those are great for measuring out that vanilla. I don't work without a work tray underneath it. I don't scoop leftovers out of pans into a dish unless there's a work tray under it, because I know there's a greater, when I could see, I would spill things by accident, but there's a greater chance if I can't see. So I'm going to try and contain my messes. And let's say I've got that bottle of vanilla and I accidentally knock it over. Now it's not going to be running across my counter, down the front of my cupboards, onto the floor, and I've got a big mess to clean up, and there's no way to save it. Maybe if I accidentally knock it over, there may be a way that I can channel it to the corner of the tray and into the funnel and back into the bottle, but I can't do that if it's fallen on the floor. So those work trays are, I've got about 6 of them, and I don't work without a work tray. The other thing I use is for a cutting board. Same theory. If I'm cutting a carrot or something like that, and the carrot starts to roll, and it's going to be so hard to find on the floor. But I'm not. I won't have to worry about it because it's going to hit the edge of the tray and it's going to stop. And I'll tell you about another thing. I haven't talked much about baking, but we have a big one for a big work tray, very sturdy, and it's a darker color. So if you have contrast, so if you're rolling out cookies or a pie dough or some other goodie or biscuits, the flour gets all over the place. It does if you can see, because you're making motion with your hands, and flour is so lightweight, it just kind of goes other places. That it's just the nature of that ingredient. But this one is about, I think, 3 feet wide and 2 feet tall. So it takes up a lot of counter space, but you can sprinkle flour on it and know with a great degree of certainty that the flour is going to be contained in that tray. And speaking of rolling out, we also have an adjustable rolling pin. And that is a rolling pin that's it's a normal width of a rolling pin. I think it's about 17 inches. And it's stainless steel in the center, but it has 4 wheels on each end. And the wheels are different heights. So if you want a very low dough, like for egg rolls or something like that, you're going to put the smallest wheels on each end. You're going to set the other ones off to the side, and you put the small ones. And that way, if you go and try and stick your finger under that rolling pin, it's going to be setting on your surface. You're not going to be able to get your finger under there. But let's say you take those off and exchange them out for the bigger ones. Now you could stick your whole finger, and it's going to be consistent 17 inches across. So that dough is going to be held to the height that you pre-plan it by your choice of wheels. Does that, and they're also color coded. So if you do have color available to you, that can help you out too.
Wow.
There's a lot of good stuff out there. And again, I think, well, the measuring spoons, I think, are the only tool I've told you that are specifically made for blind people. Well, the way around tags are for blind people. The pen friend is for blind people. And the bump dots are actually cabinet bumpers. The ones that they put in your cabinets and drawers to help dull the sound so it doesn't slide. That's what they are. So other people use bump dots, but they use them in different ways than we do.
Any questions or any concerns anyone has, especially now? It's a holiday season.
Yeah.
Anything you can think of?
Yeah, this is Roseanne. I have a question about baking. So I can bake, like, breads and biscuits and things like that. They're easy. I can tell when they're done, put a knife in or whatever. But with cookies, I find them very difficult because it seems like they burn very, very fast. Like 9 minutes will be maybe underdone, or 11 minutes maybe will be burnt. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult. Sometimes I try to use smell, the way the aroma is, but I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. And the other thing is, in terms of getting the cookie off the baking sheet, what I have done is just sometimes I spray it even if it says not to, because it just makes it a little easier to lift them up because they tend to break for me. That's what I was. So just
Yeah.
any thoughts on those things?
I do. So there is a tool out there, and well, a couple of things. One is when you're making cookies, consistency is going to be what you want. And every oven, if mine says 350, yours may be 355. There could be you've got to learn your own oven. So part of it's trial and error. But the way that you can raise your odds of getting it right every time is, for one thing, is to use a portion scoop. So there are ice cream scoops that come in about 42 different sizes that you can get. We sell a 1-ounce scoop, and that makes a cookie. Well, it makes like a meatball about the size of a golf ball. So that's how much dough it produces when you use the little lever, the handle to roll it out into your hand, and then you roll it up. And with cookies, it'd be the same thing, or you could put it on there. So first of all, it's consistency and size. That would be number one. The other thing would be, are you familiar with Be My Eyes or Ira?
I am familiar with them. Yes.
So that's another pair of eyes you can get into your kitchen, but you don't know how good of a baker the person on the other end is. It's a crapshoot. So you could use that to say, and I do use that. Like if I'm making biscuits or something or a pie, it's hard for me to tell. So and they'll usually, oh, you should probably leave it in there for about 2 minutes longer. But the other trick for making cookies is, the thicker the cookie is, of course, the longer it's going to take to cook. If your cookie is real thin, it's going to cook faster, right? And be crispier. So some people like their cookies flakier and some like them crisper. So you've got to figure out what you like. But if you want it to be higher and therefore cook a little longer, refrigerate your dough for about 30 seconds first. The butter, when it goes into if the butter is cold, so gluten is when wheat flour forms a little network of kind of like a grid inside your dough. If the butter is already melted, you're going to have very flat cookies. If you have chilled dough that you've chilled for about 30 minutes, and you can even make it with grated frozen butter to make it even be colder, when you put that in the oven, the flour portion of it, the dough portion of it, is going to begin to form that, to bake that network into place. If the butter has to melt while that form is being taken, then it's going to leave holes where that network is, where the butter was. The butter will eventually melt, but hopefully, if it's cold enough, that the holes will still be there. And that's how you get the holes in bread. So, well, no, that's from yeast. I'm lying to you about that. So that would be another secret, is to chill, make them consistent sizes and chill them for a consistent amount of time. And then figure out what the timing is. And it should be consistent every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear you say, though, it is somewhat trial and error until you figure out your stove, your oven.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we all like some like cookies chewy, some like them crispier. There's no
Right,
wrong
right.
answer. It's just preference.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing is the talking thermometers. Don't overlook those, because actually, if you ask your smart speaker, like, what is the temperature of a cake when it's cooked, it'll tell you, like, I don't know the number. I'm going to say, 345 degrees or something like that. So you can actually use a talking thermometer to ascertain. Will that tell you if it's golden brown? No, but it'll tell you if the center of a cake or a pie is always going to be the last part to cook.
Mhm.
And so, because it cooks from the outside in, so you're gonna that's gonna be the last part to cook. So you're gonna test it in the center of the cake or the pie or the brownies.
I love my thermometer, but I use it for meat. I didn't think about using it for baked goods. So that's a good suggestion.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Gloria, did you have a question? Gloria, you're unmuted. Okay, I guess not. Any questions that come to mind? If you can unmute yourself to ask.
Hello.
Yes, Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, can I something? Thank you for presenting. These are sounds like great tips. Yeah, I had a few questions. And I don't know if you've covered this. I don't think I heard everything, but if you did it, let me know. It will be recorded. So the questions is um like when you're baking something that like for me, by the way, we have an oven, electric oven, and we have an electric stove, so that's what I've grown up with and still have. I actually haven't really learned much about cooking, but anyway, so when you're the question is, yeah, when you're trying to bake something that's all together, like say a cake or brownies, that where you just have a pan of something, how do you effectively cut something that's so crumbly? How do you effectively cut it without being so messy? Like, is there a better tool than just like a serrated knife that
Oh.
and also, like, along those lines, I have a little tunnel vision. I struggle with the depth perception and stuff. How do you ensure that you're cutting even? Like, one brownie is not like a midget and the other brownie is like bigger. Like, is there a way to cut them like evenly? Is my next
There
question.
is a way. So there's a tool. I'm going to tell you about two tools right now. The one that I'm going to point you to, it's called the baking grid pan. And it's basically a 9 by 13 pan. And it's three pieces. One is just like kind of like a regular pan, a little bit more shallow, but basically that size. And then it has what I'm going to call a sling that you set inside the pan. It's basically a false bottom. I'll explain that to you in a minute. And then it has a non-stick grid. So you put your brownie filling in there, you put your stuffing in there, you put anything that will level out, and then you drop the stainless steel grid, and it will bake and cut at the same time 18 equal rectangles.
Oh, neat.
Oh, it's like magic. I use it for Rice Krispie squares. You got to do it while they're still a little bit warm. But so then when you go to, I'll talk about that sling. So when you take it out of the oven and you let it rest for a minute, because hot baked goods crumble. You need to let it rest and come together.
Right.
Then you grab the handles of that sling and you lift up that false bottom. So now it's out of the pan, and you set it over to the side on a work tray or whatever surface you've got. And now the sides are exposed too. It makes it so easy to get them out. It is no knife is necessary, and they're all the same size. It's a really cool pan. It's called the baking grid pan. The other pan, I don't sell pots and pans as a rule, but you can see that one is so blind friendly. I don't have to worry about it, because it is hard to cut a long straight line when you can't see. Shorter distances are easier, but when you're going 13 inches down the line, it definitely can be slow and challenging. This solves that problem. So the other tool is called a locking lid pan. And it is a pan that has a special lid on it and special handles so if you're making pasta or you're making potatoes and you need to drain the water, again, we're going to go with, we need a third hand kind of thing. If you have a strainer in the sink, you can make an educated guess, but that pan is too heavy. You can't carry that pan with one hand. So it's going to be an educated guess at best where that strainer is. This pan has drain holes in the lid. And when you turn the handles 180 degrees, they're kind of shaped like circles, it actually locks that lid in place and it can't come off. Even if you lift the pan up by the handle, the lid handle, even if it's very heavy, the whole pan will come straight up. It's very strong and it works. So then now you've got your two hands, you're going over to the sink. There's no strainer in there because you don't need one. You're going to drain it through the holes, and they have smaller holes and bigger holes, but and we have a 5-quart size, which is good for usually 3 people or so. And then we have an 8-quart size if you're feeding a larger group. Those pans are wonderful, and they're non-stick. They have a ceramic lined interior, and they're ivory. They're very, very nice pans.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Ashley.
Wow. thanks.
Any other burning questions? Anyone? We have time for one more question, if anyone. Sorry, was it?
Okay, well, let me give you some information about how to. So feel free to call Tara. You can give them my contact information. You just, if you want any of the things, you can call and I can help you place an order, or you can go to theblindkitchen.com. We have over 90 tools now that are just like the ones I've talked about, and they range from $2.99. I think our most expensive tool is at I think it's $69.99 for the 8-quart pan. So the range of prices is a lot. And some of them, and the other places, go to the Blind Kitchen library. That is just going to give you information. Like a lot of what I've given you today, you don't have to buy anything. You just, if you don't have the information, you can't implement it.
That's great, Deborah. And we have recorded the session and we will send it out hopefully by tomorrow. Deborah, I have one burning question. And that's can openers. I have 4 of them. I buy and then they're useless. I cannot use them. Any suggestions?
That's the tool of the month for November because there's so many cans with Thanksgiving, pumpkin and green beans and cranberry sauce. So the one we have is, we call a safe can opener, and then we throw in a can strainer, which is just basically like a bowl with holes in it, stainless steel, so you can drain your green beans. It fits like a hat on top of the can after you get the lid off. But where ours differs is can openers, the traditional ones where they have 2 handles that you squeeze together to engage the blade, and then you turn the handle and go around. That's cutting the top of the can away, and it produces jagged edges. It's not safe.
Yeah.
Ours, it only has 1 handle, because you're not using the handles to engage the blade. And in fact, I don't know how the blade engages. It just does. It works like magic. You set it up against the side of the can. There's like a 3-sided guide on top of it that's just steel, and you set that 3-sided guide, so that's how you know the blade's going to be in the center of that guide somewhere. You can never see it and you can never feel it, even when it's engaged. It's like magic. But when you go to cut it, again, you're going to turn the wheel. There is a wheel handle that you turn, and it cuts the top, it cuts the side of the can about 1/8 of an inch from the top of the lid. So when you get it done, you go around, and then you'll hear it click, or you'll feel it's no more resistance. You just pick that lid straight up, and there's no sharp edges.
Hey,
I mean, you're
wow.
not going to rub your fingers on it, but you're not going to have those jagged edges. I do not know how this thing works, but I love it. Somebody told me about it, and I thought, we got it. So we call it the safe can opener, and I use mine all the time.
That's great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Deborah, so much for these tips, and happy cooking, baking, and overall eating during the holiday season.
Yes, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Great questions, you guys.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.